Today we are going to look at nested function. We are still dealing with functions. So nested function is writing a function inside another function. Now, ANSI C does not permit this, but GCC compiler, through extension features, allows you to write nested function, and that is why I am going to demonstrate that for you to see today. Now, let's write a very simple program to demonstrate, to explain this nested function. I'll say include stdio.h. All right. So I am going to write an outer function. So void, and I will just call it outer, right? And then I will do this. Now inside this function, I am also going to declare a variable, and I will say int x. I will assign 33 to it, right? So this is the variable for this outer function. Then inside this outer function, I'm going to declare another function, which is the inner function. So I will also say void. This one I will call it inner, right? And then I will do this. Now inside this inner function, I'm going to access this variable of the outer function. That is called lexical scoping. Lexical scoping, right? The compiler allows that. So I am going to print f, calling my printf function. Then I will say accessing parent variable, right? Then I will say %d/n. I'll close this x. So because of this, I am able to access this value from inside the child, this inner function. Then here I am going to close my inner function, and then I will call this inner function from this outer function. So I will say inner. So I am calling this inner function inside the outer function. All right, so I'm going to close my outer function. Then here I will say int main. This is my main function. I will do this. Then inside my main, I'll call the outer. I'll call the outer, and then I'll say return 0. Then I'll close this. All right. So this is me writing a nested function. So I'm having a function inside another function. ANSI C doesn't allow this, but with GCC extension, I can do this, and I'm using that compiler. So that is why I'm writing this. So I'm using this to explain this lexical scoping. So what happened? This is my main, which is the soul. So through this soul, I'm calling the outer function, which is the outer function. Now this outer function has a variable, which is what? 33 assigned to it. Then this outer function is going to call. So this is like parent and child. ANSI C will not allow the existence of a child in the first place, because when you declare a function, a memory location will be created for it. So there is no way the compiler will be able to access the memory location of a child. So ANSI C does not allow that. But through GC extension, you are able to do this. So this means you are having the parent existing and the child existing at the same time. Now, because the parent is alive, whatever the variable of the parent is, the child that is within that parent can access it. So if a parent has a thought, that child can access the thought of the parent That is what you call lexical scoping. Now, example of this is when Jesus was alive with his disciples. So he had power and he could send them out. Because he was still alive and was with them, they could access that power and use it outside. That is this concept, right? So in the soul, I'm calling my outer function. When I call this outer function, then the outer function, because it is still alive, right? Now call this inner function. Once the outer function call this inner function, that is calling this inner function inside the outer function, control will come to this guy, right? And then it will enter and print accessing parent variable X. So this one will access this place through this concept called lexical scoping. So this is you creating an inner function inside an outer function. But you can access this inner function, which is the child function, can access the parent variable because of this concept called lexical scoping. So calling the child function here while the parent is still alive enables this to work, right? Now, in my main, I am calling the outer function, which is the parent. So you go in from here, control will come to this place, right? Control will come from here to this place. Then this variable will be created, and then this inner function will be created, which is the child is born. Then inside this parent, you are calling the child, and then the child is able to access the parent variable. And this will be printed out on the screen, right? It will print this out, and it will print this, and it will print 30 with this. So this is the concept of nested function with lexical scoping. Now, when Jesus was going to leave, he had to tell the disciples that I'm going to send you the Holy Spirit. So that will be a portal through which you can now access the power to use it. So in the next class, I'm going to teach you that concept in programming. It is called trampoline. Trampoline. So that is a concept in which the child will still be able to access this variable of the parent, even when the parent is no more. Right? But in this one now, the child can access the variable of the parent because the child is inside the parent and the parent is still alive. So from outside here, I can call the soul. From this soul, I can call the parent, and then the parent will create the child, meaning the child is born, and inside the parent, you can call that child, and the child can access the variable of the parent. So this is a concept of nested function and lexical scoping. So in the next class, I'm going to teach you this concept of trampoline, where the parent is no more, but the child can still access the thought of the parent. So let's go to code block. Let me demonstrate this for you. And then in next class, I'll teach you trampoline. Okay, so this is our code block. And then this is our nested function program that I've written. So you can see this is the program. I can just do this, void outer function. Then I declare a variable inside this outer function. And then I created the inner function inside the outer function. And then I'm writing direct access to the master. So I am printing the value of X, right? Then I'm calling the inner function inside the outer function directly, meaning the parent alive, the parent is alive, and then you are calling the child function inside the parent. So it can access the variable of the parent directly. That is what this means. So in my main, which is the soul, I am accessing the outer function. So I'm calling the outer function in my main. I'm not seeing the inner function, right? So when I call the outer function, inside this outer function, I'm now calling the inner function, which is now displaying what is inside the child, right? But what is exposed to the soul is the parent. So this is the concept of nested function. And then this ability of the child to access the variable of the parent is called lexical scoping. So that's what I want to show you in this class. Now let's run this program and see what the output will be. So I execute it, and then you see what is printed out. So it printed direct access to the master. Then it's printing out 33. Whereas when I was calling, when I was calling inside the soul, I was calling the outer function, right? You can see this is the soul. I was calling the outer function from inside, from the soul, and then I'm having access to the child that is inside the outer function. So I can access the child through the parent, and then that child is going to give me the output of the variable that is inside the parent. You can see the concept. So this is the concept of nested function. So that's what I want to show you in this class. So till we see you in the next class. Bye bye.